Hey guys, how are you? You guys see me? Can you guys hear me? I hope so. Let me know how the sound and picture is. This is a little bit new. We'll see how it works. So right now I do see everything has very good connection. There's 4 people here, but I do need you guys help to let me know that you guys can hear it pretty good. So let's see. Okay, great. So all right. So we have Roy here. Hi, Roy. Hi, Mike. How's it going? John, great to see you. Patty, how are you? Raul, great to see you. As you can see, it's a different format. I'm going to go back to XSplit when I'm doing the demonstrations because I'm very limited. But when we're doing interviews, this program will be better. So this is just like a little growing pains guy. Hey, Monty, how are you? A little bit of growing pains, guys. We'll still be able to see everything. We don't have all those fancy camera work we have, but the good thing is that I'll be able to perhaps see comments better and stuff like that. So that will be a good thing. So I could, just like last week, I could go ahead and highlight comments or something like that, which is really cool. So that would be great. So that's one good thing. Let's see here, and we'll just go to our banners. And of course, this is part 6 of painting Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. So I hope everyone had a very good holiday season. We made it through it, right? And now we just get ready for next year. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get ready for next year. That's all. That's going to be my MO, just to do that. So, yeah, so I don't have several cameras today, so that I do apologize for. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I think I want to work in the dark mixture. I think that's a good, hey, Brad, good to see you. So cool you're here. And so we have a nice group so far. Always the best. You guys are just fantastic. And of course, you guys know that already. I do have 2 monitors. So that's pretty cool. So yes, great thinking, Mike. Definitely. I do have the 2 monitor thing happening right now, but this software is basically just for interviews. My other software is for, multiple cameras. So I just added the different software, but once I put that in the system in YouTube, it doesn't allow me to put in a different streaming software. So that's kind of hey, Chris, good to see you. How's it going? But great thinking, Mike, definitely. So I really appreciate any feedback you guys give me. That's for sure. Okay, so I'm going to take my artwork and move it aside, especially with the dark mixture. It's quite potent, and I don't want to, mess up with the dark mixture. So you'll see I have my trusty Extreme Patriot arrow, which is customized. Those who ordered the airbrush next week, I'm just waiting on the parts to go ahead and finish customizing your airbrushes. They should be going out next week. So I do apologize for the delay. And that goes for yours as well, Chris. I'm just waiting on the actual body of your Extreme Patriot 105. Okay, so we promised the dark mixture. Dark mixture is potent. You don't play with the dark mixture, it's definitely a different feel in the light and medium mixture. That's for sure. I'm not going to need a lot of it. What can go wrong? I'm not going to need a lot of it, but what I'm going to do is just the dark accents and everything. Remember, another Timism is, whenever you put anything in your airbrush, first put it on a scrap piece of paper. It's so important. And you just want to make sure you have a good flow, right? No spitting, good reaction time when you pull back. Hey, Scott, great to see you. How are you, sir? So cool. Come back to the dark side, Mike says. That's pretty funny. Yes, come back to the dark side. You know, I wanted to, on the bottles of the dark mixture, I wanted to put Darth Vader on there. I thought that would be really cool, but definitely there will be some copyright infringements if I do go down that route. Am I right? So that's something I have to definitely worry about. And so now that I have the dark mixture and it's secure, I'm over here. And we're going to do the two airbrush methods today. And so I'm thinking that with the two airbrush method, we can go ahead and do the dark and the medium mixture. So the first thing I want to do is I want to touch on some of the dark areas and some of the darkest darks. This is the time when I do a little bit of the dark accents, and I got to be careful because there are areas here, even though they're dark, have a lot of light in them. So if I go too dark and I'm too heavy with that, then I could definitely throw the balance out of whack. Here we go. And you see, ever so slightly. And even with the dark mixture, like anything else, a lighter touch is going to make that dark mixture a bit lighter. And do apologize. Today I don't have the blow up tool, but that'll just make us appreciate it more next week, right? Hey, Willie, great to see you. How are you, sir? Hey, Jason, great to see you. Thank you so much, all the way from the UK. I know it's late there, and I appreciate you coming by, definitely. Definitely at this late hour, right? That's for sure. So definitely thank you so much for that. And Willie, good to see you. And so cool. And John says you could put Dark Helmet on Spaceballs. That's very funny. Very, very good, sir. I like that. And so whenever we do on one side, we're always going to do on the other side. And but with the dark mixture, we have to really be weary because there might not be a call for much dark mixture here and there. Maybe a little bit on the edge of this here. Let me just using my freehand shield here. And and you want to take your time getting the edge with the freehand shield perpendicular, not parallel. But you guys know that, but I'm still going to say it over and over again. And Mr. Jason says he's working nights, sneaking a few minutes on my lunch break. Well, it's an honor. So it's great to see you, great to have you. That's for sure. And Jason, so Jason is here and Patrick is here. So hey Patrick, happy New Year. Good to see you. So glad you made it. And it's always great to see you all the way from Montreal. I'm just going to add a little contrast here. Like I said, I want to be careful because what's happening is there's going to be some lights in those darks. So we really have to be careful, and we don't want to go too dark, too opaque. And that's always going to be a concern. Okay, this eye here, perhaps we can go a little bit darker in the pupil. There we go. And let's take a look over here. And I think we have some darks here, but not too dark. But there's a nice dark right over here. And I'm not going to use a freehand shield because it's a little soft edged. There we go, just like that. And just pulling this down. There we go. Now here's a good time to go ahead and work on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily move Mr. Wonderful over here. Whenever you're working with ink, putting it in, putting in your airbrush or putting it in a cup, always be very wary, guys, very wary. So when looking at his eyebrows, and it's no time like the present to try and paint in those eyebrows, I did go ahead, as you can see, I already set up by darkening the eyebrows. So now I'm going to come in with a paintbrush, and I would say the medium mixture. I think the dark mixture might be a little potent. So let's take our medium mixture here and give it a good shake. Like I said, Mr. Wonderful, your painting is far away, because if you do that, it would be just horrifying, just bad. So we want to be careful. And so here we are. We're going to put a little bit in here, just like that. Not too much. And now Mr. Wonderful's eyebrows. So we're going to take, now all these are available, which is really great. One of the things, like all the products I use, including the airbrush, are on my website, paintedglyphs.com. And that's really fantastic. You can get this paintbrush, which we're going to use. And it's a rigger brush by Winsor & Newton. And I really love it. So we're going to go ahead and start this up. I have some paper here. Some water here. And what we're going to do is when I do this, it's a dry brush technique, meaning what I do is actually get rid of a lot of the excess liquid or water in the ink, and I'm pretty much working dry. And it gives me a little more control. So that is a plus, definitely. And let me go ahead and get my rag here. Make sure this area is dry. Okay, so I'm going to keep this over to the right. I'm going to keep this over here, and we'll bring Mr. Wonderful back, and we'll see how it's going to go with this paintbrush. We might use a quill. There are no rules, no hard, fast rules. Whatever works best. That's my motto. So, all right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to really concentrate and look at the direction of his eyebrows, right? The hairs of his eyebrow. So we're going to make sure we see the direction of them. There we go. So we'll just put this over here. There we go. This gives us a nice point here. And it's always good to stay light in the beginning and then work your way darker. Oh, thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate that. That's a really nice compliment from Patrick. I appreciate that very much. And we're just going to continue working here. Now we're definitely going to have to go darker, but this eyebrow is pretty important when it comes to getting his likeness. So we want to make sure that we really set this up nicely for the darker mixture coming up. And there'll be some some like white pastel we're going to put in here in the in-between areas, which is going to be good. And like I said, we might do a little crow quill action. That might be fun. So we'll see about using that. There are no rules at all. There are Timisms, right? And there are things, principles, but everything has its exception. So always remember that. Everything has its exception. Oh, great question. So Monty says, what size brush would I use for this? So this right here is Winsor & Newton, the Cotman line, and it's the 333 rigger brush. Really good. So I highly recommend that. Very small. And yes, you're right, Chris. It is on my website, if you want to get it from me. But if you have somebody, close by, that would be cool too, Uh, but, a lot of times people don't want to go ahead and search the web for it. And you can just, like everything I use pretty much is on that website, which is great. So as you see, we're just starting to bring him together very slowly. I'm getting rid of the excess water. And I'm going to come back in with the dark mixture a little bit later, because we want to make sure we establish, some of those hairs are pretty dark in his eyebrow, but a lot of them are pretty light as well. But this seems to be like one of the last things that really brings him up, which is really cool. Hey, what's up, Rick? Good to see you. Thank you so much. I can't. Funny thing, Rick. So this is Streamlabs, and I got Streamlabs because it was really good for doing interviews, and that's going to be a lot of fun when we do the interviews on this channel. I have several really great people in line. Ken couldn't make it last week, but he's going to come pretty soon. And then I have the artist Kent Lynn. He actually went ahead and he's excited about being on our channel and being interviewed. And I'm going to have some really great airbrush artists as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, so I tested this out. This is a test using StreamYard just for this type of thing. And it's not exactly best for the demo live streams. So we live and learn, right, Rick? That's what happens. And just like the hair, you want to stick with this, guys, stick with the, we want to stick with the eyebrow here. Yeah, it was a communication gap, Chris. It was definitely my fault. And so we're going to definitely do that soon. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're thinking next week, but we're not sure. Hey, Mr. Steve, how you doing? Good to see you, sir. How's it going? So, yeah, so Mr. Ken is going to make an appearance on our channel again, because I remember he actually was here once, not in interview form, but he was in the, talking in the comments, which was really great. So we're going to do something even better coming up, which is really great. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to get a second cup, and these cups are great. You can get them from Walmart. And I'm going to put some dark mixture in there because I'm going to put some dark mixture. I'm going to do something a little radical here. We'll test it out, because we live by the seat of our pants, don't we, guys? We're guys and girls. So we're going to go to the loony bin together, and we're going to use the crow quill as soon as I find it. Let's see how this goes. Okay, crow quill. This might be scary. Actually, it's going to be scary. But, you know, we don't care. That's our thing, you know? So let's see. And here we go. Crow quill. Dun, dun, dun. Now, the thing with the crow quill is you want to be quick, right? You don't want to be too slow with it. So you want to be quick. We're just going to put in some of these dark hairs pretty quickly, right? So the crow quill actually works pretty good. You get these really beautiful hard edges. And here we go. And then we're also going to come in and get in some of these negative shapes too. 1 second rule is going to help us. So we're going to continue with the 1 second rule. Just like that. So now I have the crow quill. I'm going to ask myself, Tim, where can I use the crow quill where it will continue to work, best for us, you know? So let's go ahead and let's see. I like the idea of getting this super hard edge right here. So let's see how this works. Now we do have the dark mixture in here, right? So we need it's a little scary, but it's nothing we can't handle. And we're going to see where can we have some dark accents that are really thin. And right here, I think we could do this. We can always lighten it. So let's give it a shot. Just like that. I kind of like that. I think anywhere else that we would use this would be extreme overkill. So we're definitely going to refrain from that. And you don't really have to get the eyebrow hairs perfect. We just have to make sure that we get the direction correct. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean this out. And now what we're going to try is to go ahead and go back in. Oh, good question. So here's a good, oh, wow, Mr. Leahy, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Mr. Leahy was so cool to, give a donation to the channel. And that's great. I really appreciate that, sir. And let's see. So John asked a question, where do I get the crow quill? You can get these crow quills anywhere, any store. Even Michael's would have it, Hobby Lobby. You can get them so many different places. They're really inexpensive. They come in a set and they're by Speedball, which is really cool. You get the crow quill and the other things with that. So that's really great. And so we'll go ahead and do that there. So we were going to go in with the white pastel, right? And see if we could pull out some of the negative spaces or negative shapes in that eyebrow, right? So let's go ahead and see what we can do. So has anyone seen Mr. Leahy's saxophone that he's working on? Unbelievable. It's a whole conceptual painting, which is really wild. I really love it. It's really great. If you haven't seen it, check it out on Steve Leahy's Instagram and also on Mr. Leahy's YouTube, Facebook channel, which is really great. Yes, Hobby Lobby does have it, and they're not that expensive, based off a dolly. That's really funny, Mr. Leahy. That's hilarious. So, yes, a dolly composition. That's too funny, Mr. Anderson. Good to see you. Yes, that is so true, Mr. Anderson. Steve is doing just an amazing job. All those little reflections, and it's just really wild, right? That's all I have to say. Now, some of these negative shapes are really thin. So I'm just going to come in with the Fons and Porter. Now remember, the Fons and Porter can give you a nice hard edge, but it can also give you a soft edge and a light touch if you give a very light application, light pressure, just like in digital art. If you go light pressure with the new pressure sensitivity, uh, it works really well. And so I have the dark mixture in this airbrush. And what I'm going to do is ever so lightly, I'm just going to dust this in certain areas, just to bring this together, right? The eyebrow is only important at the later stages of the game, like this. So it's something you wouldn't get involved in when you were, let's say, in the beginning of the painting or even in the middle. We're probably about 75 to 80% into the painting, I would say. So I'm just going to try and hit some of those negative shapes. And try and stay abstract, don't get too hung up on the fact that it's an eyebrow. Okay, so now that we have that, we should start working on some of the negative or some of the shapes within the shapes. And we can do that with the white pastel. So this is a value shape right here, but we're going deeper because this is how the progression is. First, you get the line correct, then the value shapes, then the edges of those value shapes as they interconnect together like countries. And then once there, you get the adjacent edges, then you get the shapes within the shapes. And that's where we are in a lot of areas. We're getting the shapes within the shapes. And you see it can get a lot more translucent in those shadows. There really aren't many hard fast, like this is this value right here. Light's bouncing off everywhere. So to have something just like be just this one hard shape is kind of impossible. So that's cool. Let's see. Now, this is an interesting spot. I don't know what to call it. It's the windowsill of the lower eyelid or something like that. I know that definitely isn't the technical term, but there's this like little windowsill here, and there's these little lights, and it gives a dimension, so it comes out, it comes straight out from the eyeball, the lower lid, and then goes down. So we want to catch that. And there are these little tiny highlights here and there. And remember, very light pressure, and you're going to get a very light application of anything, whether it's the pastel or airbrush or whatever. Light is always right, and then darker is when you need to, but not till then. Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate that. John says Mondays and Wednesdays are to watch the Masters work nights. I appreciate that, sir. That's very nice. Thank you. And so same thing, it's we want to go slow. We don't want to rush into anything. And we always want to continue working this out and continue working out this eyebrow as you go, but also you want to make sure you continually move around as well. You don't want to get fixated into one spot, and then before you know it, the painting's about the eyebrow, right? So you want to refrain from that. So one of the good places we could work is definitely the forehead, right? That's always where we will neglect, So that's the last to actually come together. So let's go ahead and see if we could go ahead and work on that eyebrow forehead a little bit. Now we do have some really nice creases and stuff going on. So let's take our pastel and then lightly, Remember, the lighter the application of the pastel, the less pastel is going to be deposited onto your surface than being more gray and less white. So always remember that. And let's see right here. We have this little bit of a crease. And then with that crease, you have this corresponding highlight on the other side. So I'm going to actually load my 105, and I'm going to load that with the, I'm really pretty much done with the dark mixture, I would say. And right now I'm going to come in with the light mixture because we have to put in some subtleties here, right? We definitely have to do that. So let me go ahead and get my Stream Patriot 105 ready. Hopefully there won't be any air leaks. I know I just have to put plumber's tape, but we're good. Nice, works great. So let's get some light mixture in there. I'm going to go way away from the painting because I don't want it to splash on there. So, and of course, remember whenever you have introduced a new airbrush or you put, more ink or paint in there, you want to make sure that your painting is far away. Okay, so we have nice and light, and we also have, let me just raise the air pressure a little bit. Okay, so we're good, and let's go ahead and work on some of the subtleties, especially in that forehead there. So let's see. If you haven't worked in the inks before, one of the things you'll really realize is how much control you can get. And also with this airbrush, like I always say, I go head to head with any airbrush out there as far as the detail that we can get with the custom Extreme Patriot Arrow. It's just really fantastic, what's available to you for $150. It really is cool. So let's continue with some of That's true. Mr. Wonderful would definitely say that, right? He's a character. He's very colorful and the best part of the show, if you ask me. So do you guys watch Shark Tank a lot? I love it. I'm just so crazy about it. I watch it all the time. And thank you for that. I really wish Mr. Wonderful could see this just to get his opinion. I would love that. Even if he sees this, after the fact, that would be great. There we go. Just open that up a little bit. And so, when we do the shadow, we have to do the corresponding light. And that's in creases, we really see that. So we have to do the shadow part, and then we'll come in with the light. So let's go ahead and come in with our white pastel and see if we could go ahead and take care of that together. See, we can do that nice crease just like that. Same thing over here. And the 1 second rule, this will keep you from putting creases or highlights in the creases that just aren't there. So we want to make sure that we're painting what's there. There we go. Just put that there, just like that. There we go. And up top here as well. And you want to make sure you get away from any formula, like saying, oh, okay, if the light's coming from the left, therefore the crease is going to be on the right, and the shadow's going to be. You want to stay away from formula and always look, right? You want to basically know about the light, but always look for any kind of abnormalities or anomalies, right? You always want to make sure you do that. It's very important. Same thing here. We're just going to start getting some skin texture as well and just working that out. And the forehead, believe it or not, when you're painting a portrait, the forehead is crucial for getting a likeness. That's so important to do. So make sure that that we do that, okay? But like I said, even if Mr. Wonderful sees this after it's done and it's recorded, I hope Mr. Wonderful will leave a comment. That would be great. That would be such a wonderful thrill, I mean, but they always say, like was it Wayne Gretzky? Is that if you shoot the puck at the net, it's some of it bound to go in, right? So that's good. Oh, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. So Mike says, remember to the thumbs up, which is really cool. So I appreciate that. And Steve is doing a commission. So what's really cool is Steve is doing a commission right now of the sax player named Dino Govani. Wow, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, you guys should see that. It's really a wonderful work of art. Very true. And we're just going to continue here, get some. Now, for me, I'm going to make sure that I start getting some of this texture here. For me, I always was taught when I would ask my teacher, how do you get skin texture? And they would say, just continue to paint and you'll see it. It's something that comes. And one of the things is you're just looking not only for, remember, you're not only looking for the highlights or you're looking for the value, you're looking for the spaces between whatever you're painting. So right now I'm doing a light, but I'm looking for the spaces in between. And that the spaces in between are actually just as important for getting really good skin texture. And I have to focused on keep myself focused on the forehead, right? We definitely got to keep focusing. Even now, I want to go ahead and move on to other areas, but sometimes it's important to just focus on one area, especially when you're trying to really get some of the character of this part of his face, right? Or head. Just ever so light here. This crease sort of continues ever so lightly here. Just going to make sure we do that. And then we have a little bit of a mid-tone because there's it's a depression in the center of his forehead. Everyone's skull is different. There we go. Wow, 20 hours in. That's going to be that's a very intricate painting, to say the least. So you see, sometimes the light on the crease might fall on the other side. It's interesting that you always got to look for those anomalies. Okay, so you also want to look and see where, maybe you can make things a little darker. You want to look at the value, the tapestry of the different values, and you can see where you might have went too light. You want to be open to that. Even in this area, we're doing these values in the forehead, but we also have to be mindful as well of the complexity of those color shapes, of those value shapes, that there's light bouncing all around. So you want to try and get that. Now notice I didn't go right there. I just sprayed. So you don't want to put white pastel on a wet surface. That's going to come back to haunt you. So just be careful of that. I'm just going to rub this in here. And the thing is, I have so many years of experience in pastel. I know how to manipulate it. And pastel is very, once you know how to manipulate it, you can basically have it do whatever you want, whatever value you want, or what have you. So let's say you went too dark, you can just take your kneaded eraser and you can just tap that right there, and you can just, get a different value, which is really cool. So the white pastel is definitely at your service when you know how to use it perfectly. Now let's go ahead and we'll use our aggressive eraser, and let's go ahead and see if we could just erase out just a little bit of the iris there, just to give a little nice detail to that eye. Translucency, that's our word of the day, is translucency. I'm just going to lighten that up. So let's continue and let's see. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to build up some of these highlights over here. It's a little stronger, and that would be good. So right now we're sort of doing the three-dimensional form. We're making forms turn, but we're also making sure that we get that cut of light, how light sort of cuts across the form in whatever direction it's coming from. So this light, Mr. Wonderful, is coming from the left and and above. So it's going to cut to go in towards the right and down. So we want to make sure we get that cut of light. It's very important. Some artists call it the washing of the light. It's how it washes over the form, and it washes over all the forms the same. Some forms are pointing or more light facing. Of course, they're going to have more of it, but they're all getting affected by that wash of light. So be mindful of that. Always remind yourself how important it is to continue to understand and know where that light is coming from and how strong it is and how it's affecting this area, what's facing the light more. All those different things are really important. Hey John, how's it going? Good to see you. So glad you can make it, sir. So John is in the house all the way from Wisconsin. So always good to see you, sir. And so I'm going to be done with the forehead in a little bit, but I just want to make sure that we continue making that an area that we're not neglecting, right? No neglecting here. We can't be neglecting. We have to make sure we continue to make sure there's balance, because we could have very well just left his forehead kind of loose and everything like that, but I don't think it would have served the portrait well in the long run. Plus, there's these really, really wonderful forms that are in the forehead, and why would we want to miss it, right? I mean, it's fun to paint. So, okay, here's another area where there's more to meet the eye, right? It's not just this one value here. We're going to go in there and we're going to definitely paint some of that reflected light that's coming off of maybe the background or something, but we have this side plane here and it's a darker value than here. But as we get towards the hair, we have some reflected light right towards the hairline back there. But we're not just going to arbitrarily do it. We're really going to do that 1 second rule. That's going to help us a lot, right? So that's really good. So, Mr. Steve, you said that you had a new YouTube video, and which video was that, sir? I didn't get a chance to see it, but I definitely would, if you could talk about it and what it is, and everybody could, later check it out. So Mr. Leahy is doing a YouTube channel, which is pretty cool, and it's mostly speed paintings, if I'm not mistaken, but really great ways to learn about his technique, and just fantastic, just to look at his work and or inspiring. That's the word I would have to use for that. Now we do have some pencil lines there, so we're just going to concentrate on getting rid of them. If you do have some pencil lines that are stubborn, it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, everyone knows it's a painting, so it's not like, life and death. As long as the painting looks good, you have some pencil lines here and there. Believe me, I don't care that much. The successful part is really, getting all the values and the shapes and the edges correct. And if there's a couple of pencil lines, that's okay. I can live with that. Also, you want to look for the crease. That's a very advanced thing, but not the crease, but the grain of the skin. You'll see the grain of the skin when you look close. And it's always good to have high resolution images when you work, because then you can see the grain of the skin a little bit better. Same thing here. You have this value shape, but there's a lot more going on in that value shape. There's light bouncing all around, so it's hitting inside. So you definitely can't just leave it as a straight value shape. You really have to see what's going on inside. Also, you see that when his forms are turning away from and towards the light, you really owe it to your painting and your subject to really show the turning of those forms. So you see the cheek here is turning towards the light as it's turning away from here. So definitely let's make sure that we apply that. So if this was a portrait commission, these are all things that, you definitely want to have a likeness, but you don't really worry about it until like this stage is when the likeness sort of reveals itself. So now, same thing here. We have some creases here. We're just going to put them in. Let's see. Let's put those creases there. So next week, tentatively, Mr. Ken from Badger will be here, and so that would be great. If not, we're probably just going to finish up Mr. Wonderful. If we don't finish Mr. Wonderful up today, Kevin O'Leary. So while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and flesh out the ear here. Hey, that rhymes. I'm just going to do that right now. There we go. Now, you also, like I said, with edges, right? You want to, this ear is going back into space. So if I went ahead and put detail in that ear, it would not serve me well, because if I did, then that ear would have detail and it would come forward. And then I wouldn't have a sense of depth from his face coming forward and his nose being the front of his face. So those are all things to really take in consideration. You know, we work like a camera. There we go. And we'll continue. Okay, so now we have the light of the ear. Now, I mean, like the hair next to the ear, but it's not as light as, it's a little bit darker than the lights on the ear. So let's go ahead and put that in. But once again, soft edge, right? We have to keep those edges. It's not just good enough to put the values. We have to make sure that the edges are working, you know, that they are soft when they're soft and hard when they are hard edged. So make sure we do that. Those little details are so important, right? I really think they are. They're really crucial. And as the orbital ridge here turns towards the light, it's going to get more white. So remember, as the forms turn towards the light, they'll get more white. That's another Timism, I think. And let's see. Okay, he's starting to come together a little bit. I'm happy, but we have to be diligent, right? We can't get complacent when it comes to portraiture. We have to continue sticking with the program, working on the edges and the values and stuff like that. All those things are so crucial. There are areas where I think I might have gotten overzealous with the pastel, and look how I can reclaim that shape just by, with the kneaded eraser and just tapping it, and you can take off as much pastel as you want, which is really great. Okay, so whenever you put in the white pastel and you want to make sure that, you know, because you do lose it, right? It does go away and come back, especially when you're spraying in areas. So I could take my white pastel pencil and I can just really accent that highlight there. Same thing on this side. There we go. So give it a little more strength, especially in where we want the viewer to see. Same thing here. I can put a little more strength here if I wanted to. As Mr. Bob Ross says, it's my world, right? I guess, you know, that's hilarious. Same thing over here. It's a little bit lighter, so we'll go ahead and continue that line of thinking. And also, remember the grain of the skin, and you'll see it when you look, that the grain of the skin will reveal itself what direction the skin is being pulled around the muscles and the bone. So you want to try and get the grain of the skin at the latter part, right? So that's something that you want to do. And right here is a pretty light facing area, so we're going to put that in. Just like that. Here we go. So we have some depth going on there. And then over here, but you can't have a highlight without a corresponding dark, right? You just can't. So let's go ahead and put that in. And then we have a little very super light crease going down like that. Now we're going to go ahead. We'll move down to the lips. And let's see what we can do to pretty much put some texture in there and get rid of some edges that we want to see. Sometimes you'll want to see an edge, and it's up to you to force yourself to really look and see what's happening with those edges, right? We really have to force ourselves. So here, as it goes towards the corner of the mouth, things really get soft, right? They get very soft edge, kind of murky, right? So those are things that you really want to pay attention to. Same thing in here. So right here, I'm looking and saying to myself, I think I went a little bit light, a little bit dark, and I could lighten that up. Let me try it first with the mono eraser and see if that does the trick. If not, we have different ways to do it. But always try the least aggressive eraser when you're, hey, Sorasit, how's it going? Thank you so much. It's good to see you. Sorasit is all the way from Scotland, I believe. So it's always great to see you, Sorasit. And Patty says, don't forget to click the like button. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. So Sorasit, it's nice to see you, especially in this late hour over there in the UK, right? And so Sorasit says, great job. Well, I really appreciate that so much, Sorasit. Thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate my UK people. You guys are great. And you see, when I really pay attention to what's happening, right, I have to definitely pay attention to the values and the value relationships. That's where the likeness is going to be, not necessarily in the details, but the relationships, what's happening. So right here, you'll see that this part of the lip on this corner just basically has no border with the rest of the face. And that's something to really pay attention to. And I'm going to apply some of the white pastel, sort of scumble that in, because there's a lot of reflected light going on there. Lots of reflected light. Lots. So definitely we have to pay attention to that. And it almost bleeds into this light area, sort of bleeds in. And, when you're looking in the details, make sure you zoom out and look at the whole picture, okay? Not just the details. So make sure you continually zoom out, because you can get too caught up in the trees and really lose sight of the forest. So make sure that doesn't happen. Over here, you can see there's a lot of midtones in here, lights in there in that value shape, not just, a whole. And I'm just scumbling in, just getting a feeling of the tapestry of that skin, right? That's so important. And as you see, I'm just sort of scumbling that in. We can always come back in with the light mixture if we want to grab some texture here. We can do that. And so I'm going to actually put pastel, not where I just sprayed, because you don't want to put pastel in a wet area. So just bring that in a little bit. We've got to get rid of any hard edges that we wanted to see, right? There are going to be some times where you want to see a delineation, like right here between his neck and his chin, but there really isn't a delineation. So there is the slightest delineation right here, but it's ever so slight. And the edges are really murky, right? There's really no set edge there. And that little thing, those little observances are so important for the overall appearance of your subject. But you're not going to be doing this in the beginning or the middle. You're going to be doing this in the latter part of your painting. Now, over here towards his ear, yes, there is a delineation, but you have to make sure it's there before you put it there, not because you want to see it there. Okay, so we could work on this area here on the corner of his mouth. Always remember that, distance is the best tool to lighten up the values as you're spraying, right? So further distance away, the lighter your application of ink will be. So make sure you control your distance. It's very important. And so now that I went ahead and went in there, I definitely can see where I went too dark. Again, it's our way of, our subconscious getting in and just letting us, trying to say, well, this should be dark over there, and there should be a border between those two shapes. But in reality, we do find that that's not the case a lot of times. So we can put that in, then we can come back in with our kneaded eraser and shape this out. And one of the things I always tell my students is always go outside of your comfort zone. Whatever that is, make sure that you always venture outside of your comfort zone, whether it be subject matter or something like that. It's very important. It keeps you from getting into a manneristic way of painting, like too stylized, because you just kind of continually doing the same thing and to kind of lose your powers of observation. So always push things, push the envelope, right? I think that's important. So right here, we will have some opportunity to come in with some of this Fons and Porter to try and get some of the highlights in the corner of his lip here. So let's see if we can do that together. There are abstract shapes, so you want to look for those abstract shapes. They're very important to search for. And they are going to have varying degree of intensity as far as a highlight. But just keep at it, and it'll come together. Then we can come in with our light mixture, and we can start painting in some of these little borders here, little shapes. You don't have to be perfect, but you just want to get the character of those shapes, okay? And that's what you want to do. You want to look for the character and the grain of the shape. Like the grain of the skin, there's definitely a grain of that lip there. Now, a lot of times people say, how do I make sure that when I do, let's say, a crease or wrinkle in the lip, it doesn't look like a tattoo on their lips? And the trick of that is to do it, develop the light and shade of the lip first. And then when you do put the creases in, make sure that the values are close to the rest of the lip surrounding it. Otherwise, it's going to be too strong. So that should be helpful. And so that's what we're doing right now. So right here, I'm just going to soften this crease here. You see that? Just soften it up. There we go. Now you can go ahead and try and get the lighter value first with an eraser, and a lot of times that will work. I think it will work in this case. I'm going to get an aggressive eraser. And this is a typewriter eraser, which is pretty cool. There we go. So that's how we're going to establish the lips, and you can see how the values are very close to one another when we're doing the crease, right? So that's very important. And you can see how they don't always go all the way to the end of the lip. And that's another way of making them feel like a crease. They don't go all the way down from one end to another. They sort of disappear, sort of fade into the rest of the lip. So I think that will help. And we can come back in with Mr. Fons and Porter and just pull that up. And so when I'm looking at this, I have to ask myself, do I have enough of the indication of the crease between the two lips? So with the 1 second rule, I definitely can see that I'm darker on this side. Then it gets lighter and it gets dark over in the center of where the two lips meet. And then it's dark but super soft edge. So let's go ahead and soften the edge here. So that's the whole thing of the values, and the values, and not only the values, but how they interlock with the adjacent shapes. And then we have some texture of the lips we definitely can do, Hey, Gary, good to see you. How are you? So, Gary, another one of my UK peeps. So, great to see you, Gary. And so, that's great. So, a late night for you, huh, sir? Now, you also have to ask yourself, when you're doing a dark, is it on the inside or the outside of the form? So right now we have this on the inside of the form. So let's do that. We're still going to do perpendicular and not parallel. And I'm just going to hit the outside of the form right there. And I'm going to crawl along the surface. And what that's going to do, that's going to pull the nostril away from the rest of the cheek. And there are times, and there are times when it might be, you might have missed a little bit, but you can always come back with your aggressive eraser and you can shape that. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to stick with it, right? That's the main thing. And there is a light right there, right next to it, and that's going to help. And we'll use our Fonz and Porter to really outline that a little bit. See, that's another way of bringing that nose forward, that nostril forward, which is really good. Oh, wow. So just woke up. Oh, man. And there we go. So I'm actually starting to like the portrait, but I know I have more work to do. It's not that easy. So, but we're gonna stick with it, right? We just stick with this thing and just make it work. As Tim Gunn would say from Project Runway, make it work, people, right? That's what we have to do. We have to make this work and just make sure we stick with the oh my God. So Gary, I misquoted that. So you said you just woke ill. You have COVID-19, is that correct? Oh my God, that's horrible. I didn't even realize when you said C19. I thought that meant something having to do with your job or something. I really hope you get better. You know, so we definitely have to say prayers for Gary to get better. That's so important, and so sorry that's occurring. How are you feeling right now? And so that COVID-19 is a very scary reality. It's hit all of us, one way or the other, and it's so scary. Do you have symptoms? Are you asymptomatic, sir? Is that also? You can also see how sometimes you can get overzealous in both directions. You can get overzealous with making it too light, or you can overzealous making it too dark. And in his lip, oh, great. So Gary is starting to get better. Oh my God, that's wonderful. So I'm glad that's happening. That's such good news. And I know that Wendy was feeling better. She said she just had a cough when I talked to her during the week, but she was still positive for COVID-19, which is really scary. So, Willie, how are you doing out there, sir? If you're still here, how's everything going? Did you have a good holiday season? So Gary says he slept all day and wake at night. Hey, whatever gets you better, right? That's all that matters. Oh, Patty says Wendy says hi to all. She's not feeling well and going to bed early. Oh, great. Thank you so much. So I'm glad Wendy's feeling better. Thank goodness, right, guys? Now there is some texture here in this lip, and one of the things we can do is we can probably take a semi-aggressive eraser like this, and we could go ahead and do some of the negative shapes there. And right here, even though it's a dark, there's some lights creeping in there, right? From, reflecting, bouncing off of different parts of the studio, perhaps, or maybe even his shirt. So we want to make sure we start to grab that, right? That's important. But I'm really liking the fact that he's starting to come together, and I'm starting to see Mr. Wonderful in this painting, and that's a relief. But you know what? It's just, we stuck with the program, and that's the main thing, Stick with the program, especially since I dropped my brush. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we have this semi-aggressive eraser. This is the Perfection 7056. It has like a pink pearl in there, which is really neat, Now, have any of you guys and girls used the program PureRef? And now Roy uses that. Roy, if you're still out there, right? You're using PureRef a lot. Is that correct? And Roy's doing some great paintings, that's for sure. We have a little crease action going on here, so let's make that happen. But the amount of detail that you can get with this airbrush, and I also, you can special order this one, which is my custom Extreme Patriot 105 with the larger cup. But I will go head to head with anybody. With any micron or anything, I really feel that I can definitely rival them with this airbrush. And it's amazing because it's a 0.30 nozzle. But you know what? The nozzle is not necessarily the reason why you're getting detail in an airbrush. I'm not going to go ahead and give it all the... Oh, yes, Roy says, yes, a great program, definitely. So definitely we'll go head to head with anyone who doesn't believe that this can do just as good as that 0.18, the SB, the CMSB. Great airbrush. I would never say it's not a great airbrush, but it's not the only airbrush that can get great detail. Not the only airbrush. And again, when I talk about the grain of the skin, you want to, just like wood grain, you want to feel which way the skin is actually being pulled over the muscles and the bone, and so that's so important, right? It's so important to look for that, not in the early going, but at this stage is when you want to start. Now we can definitely come over here. Let's work on the neck and also the value difference on this part of the neck. So I'm just going to reiterate, and I'm going to clean off my freehand shield in between sprays, and I'm crawling along the surface, right? Because you're not always going to find the perfect edge on a freehand shield. So you just do a little bit at a time. That's the best way to do it. So I think one more week, I think will be pretty good, as far as this painting. Maybe even, I don't know, I might go and do something else next week. I don't know, but we'll see. Well, next week is tentatively interview. We'll see how that goes, definitely. And again, looking at the grain of the skin, we can see as part of his cheekbone, it's definitely moving. The skin is moving with the direction it's tugged at, right? So always remember that. There we go. Now we do have some dark mixture left in this airbrush here. So let's bring the Extreme Patriot Arrow, the custom Extreme Patriot Arrow, and we can pretty much hit this dark value right there. What's really wonderful with this airbrush, you have that really intense control, even when you're working with the dark mixture, which if anyone has worked really dark, you realize that control is not always possible when you're working extremely dark. So that's a good thing. Perpendicular and not parallel. Very important. So now we did put in that dark with the dark mixture. Then we can come in. We can try first with the kneaded eraser and see how that works. And if we need to, we can definitely lighten that up with a more aggressive eraser. But let's see if the kneaded eraser works. Again, we want to create that feeling of that chin coming forward from the neck, right? Very important. That's what we want. So we want to be an illusionist, right? We want to take a two-dimensional surface such as paper and make it look like there's a three-dimensional surface on that. So that's really good. So I'm going to take my mono eraser, and there's just a little bit of reflected light on the edge of that chin. So let's go ahead and make that happen. And it sort of fades out there. So you see, but that chin is coming forward. That's our goal, right? To bring that chin forward. Like I said, you're going to see some pencil lines. It's not the end of the world. I mean, I don't really care. That's not my main concern. My main concern is definitely creating an image that just carries from across the room and also just feels solid and also feels like a unified surface. But then again, at this late stage, you can erase any pencil lines that you might see. But like I said, it's not the most important consideration for me. So see here, you have the light side and the dark side, right? And you say, okay, well, that's the light side and the dark side. So that's all you need to know. No, like, even though, remember, the lights and darks on the light side are going to be like shouts. Lights and darks on the shadow side are going to be like whispers. Now, what do I mean by whispers? I mean that the value range is going to be very close to one another, and they're all going to be very low keyed. So keep that in mind, that there are sometimes just as much detail on the shadow side. You just got to look for it and keep your value range a lot closer. Now, does anyone out there have, that has a question about that? Now would be a great time to get that information. So if you don't fully understand what I'm saying, please ask, because this would definitely be a good time if you do have any questions about, what I mean about value range. I'm just going to pull this up here. And there are even little creases in the shadows. But like I said, in the shadows, you can have little creases, but those values have to be really close to one another, right? On the value scale. Okay, so John says explain more, which is good. I'm glad you did. So you have what is called a value scale, right? And let me see if I can actually come over here, and I'll just see if I can find it on the web here, a value scale. Okay, cool. So I do have it. So I'm just going to go to images, and I'll just pull up your basic value scale here. So now what I can do is I can share my screen and share screen. Let's go ahead and do that and see what screen. Okay, so we're going to share this screen, which is good. Okay, so now you guys can see right over here the value from black all the way to white, right? So when you're in the shadow, when you're in the light, you're pretty much getting the whole value from the white all the way to black. And that's why I say they're like shouts, because you get it from the very brightest light to the darkest darks a lot of times in the light side. However, in the dark, you're basically right here, you can see we're staying pretty much with these last three. Those are only the values we're limited to. Now, there are a lot of details, just like here in the light side, where you go all the way from left to right. However, when you are going in the shadow area, you're very limited, because in the dark side, these other values are just non-existent. So you have to find the turning of the forms in these three values. And that's something you want to look for. And so definitely, let me go ahead and I'll stop screening, stop sharing. There we go. We're back. So that's one of the good things about StreamYard. That worked out pretty. Did that help, guys? And oh, thank you, Willie. So Willie says it looks wonderful. Oh, thank you. So Roy says Mr. Wonderful is looking good. Great class. Thank you so much. And Willie is saying, it looks awesome, Tim. Thank you, Willie. I appreciate that. And then Mr. Gary says, how do you get around the illusion a value is lighter or darker because what is next to it? Well, that's something that comes with time, right? You want to, well, great question, Gary. And I think if you're painting and just hitting those values, like, trying to hit those values on the money, without going from light to dark, I think you can have what is called simultaneous contrast, with things look lighter or darker, right? So, but this technique of definitely working with the light mixture, keeping it very light and then gradually darkening it, you're going to arrive at those values. So simultaneous contrast is when people are just trying to hit it right away. Hey, how you doing there? Good to see you. So very cool to see you, Bill. Thank you so much for coming by. I appreciate that. So yes, with simultaneous contrast, you never want to try and hit the value immediately. I would never recommend a student do that, or even an advanced artist. I want you to build it up slow. Building it up slow. Remember, light is always right. Too dark, too early, too bad, too sad. So you don't want to go too dark, too early. And when you do, that's when you're going to realize, oh man, I just went too dark. I didn't think it was that dark. And then it's too late. If you ever get too dark, it's over. So gradual is always the best way when you're painting a portrait. There's never a rush, never ever. So, so that's really cool. So basically, and that's where we are now, right? We are working on these really soft details, right? But they're soft because the value range is real close to one another. Like the last streak, black, the next two grays next to it, and that's the whole value range. So what I can do is I could start the value range, start it right here, and then if it's too much, I can always come back in with the light mixture, and I can just slowly darken down those values, bringing them in balance with the rest of the painting, with the rest of the dark side actually. Even in the later stages of the game, like here, you can see that I could, maybe change the angle of his nose here, of the dark of his nose. But usually when you're this far, when you're this far into the painting, you're not gonna make any big reconstructions. You're gonna have to live with your painting when you get to this stage. But I would say 99 out of 100, when you stuck with the program, you don't need to do any big reconstructions, right? So, all right. So what areas am I neglecting? Those are questions you want to ask when you get to this late stage, right? So what I'm neglecting is definitely the dark on the forehead here. So what I can do is I could use my freehand shield, make sure I wipe it off. And I'm just going to come in. And even though I have the light mixture, I'm just going to do another layer. And that should darken it sufficiently, but we'll see, Great. And so Gary made a good point, and Gary says that his work looks darker before he gets to the dark mixture. And I could see that happening. But the thing is, when you do that, it looks done, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is done, right? So when you come in with the dark mixture and hit those dark accents, then those values that looked like they were right on the money are actually a little bit off. So, even though it does look, Gary, before you do the dark mixture, when you hit those dark accents, things are really going to start coming together, right? Oh, look, that's my mom. Hey, Mom, how you doing? Good to see you. So that is so great. So this first time my mom is on the live stream, so that's really cool. Everyone say hi to my mom. So I'm excited that she's here. Mom is cool. And so, we're just going to continue darkening things up here. So like I said, if I don't go ahead and hit those darks, then what's going to happen with the dark accents, things are not going to really start to pop, So everyone's saying hi to Mom. That's really cool. Thank you, everybody. So look at everyone saying hi to your mom. That's cool. John and Bill and Willie. So that's cool. That is so neat. But the hard work, Gary, is always going to pay off, right? You stick with it. You stick with going from light to dark, and then like now, we're getting to the point where we're basically done with Mr. Wonderful. I mean, we're going to have an interview, I think, in the first part of next week's live stream, and then we'll just do the finishing touches of Mr. Wonderful at the end. So that would be really cool. A little something there. We'll definitely take care of that. Oh, thanks, Patty. So Patty says hi, Mom. So that's cool. And Brad, of course. And Brad's really cool, all the way from Canada. So Brad's a really cool guy. And also I can start to see here that maybe I could put a little more transition tone over here. See, when things are turning in a rounded form like this, when things are round, they have a slow turn from the light to the dark, right? So as you can see, this is turning kind of slow. So we're going to have more of a transition tone from the light to the dark. And then while we do that, we can actually see that we have a kind of a crease I didn't see before. So I'll just go ahead and put that crease in there. So I'm debating whether or not to go ahead and come in with the white pastel to get the white of his shirt, but I'm kind of torn because I don't want to. I really don't want to overdo it. And if I go ahead in that shirt, maybe if I pulled in that shirt, what could happen is that it could put his face further back in space. And I don't want to do that. I want his portrait, his character, his likeness to be front and center with this painting. That's so important. Very good question from Gary. Gary says, would the tone of the paper make a difference to the tonal range of the artwork? It wouldn't make a difference. Great question. But the tone of the paper is always going to be part of that tonal structure, right? So with this gray, you can see I have that gray is somewhere in the value range. So it's really cool to use the toned paper. Why is toned paper? Because the old masters used it. When I was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I used to go to the drawing. Actually, I used to be able to go to the drawing department, and they actually would not the actual paper itself. The paper would be like in a case, like a plastic case, and you can actually hold. I was actually able to hold a Michelangelo drawing, Raphael or Jean Auguste Dominique Ingres, David, William Bouguereau, 19th century French academics, as well as Renaissance, Parmigianino. And so what I was able to do is to look at these drawings that they did on toned paper. And I was like 19, 20 years old, and I would have unlimited time to look at this painting, these drawings, I should say, and really study how they used the toned paper. The toned paper is just amazing. And that's why I use toned paper, because of what Michelangelo did and all the greats that I was able to look at. So really cool stuff. So the tone. So let's say you're working on white paper, right? You have to go ahead and hit all the values, including the gray of the paper. But if you're using the gray of the paper, then you have the gray and you just have to go lighter and darker. So it makes it much quicker. But also it has a much nicer artistic flair to it, you know? So I like that. So Mr. Wonderful is coming together finally, right? Slowly but surely, everybody. And as they say in the movie Airplane, don't call me Shirley, right? I remember that scene. That was quite funny. I'm going to put a little more character lines in here for him, just like that. And but I really think that we're close to creating a portrait that looks like him. And I think that's important, right? To get that. And great question, Gary. Definitely great question. So right here we have two little dots in his eye there, just to show the moisture. And then that windowsill of the lower eyelid, right? We want to just pull that over. Like I said, you know, I get overzealous, and you know, the eraser we have to use that eraser to calm me down, you know, somebody stop me, that sort of thing. And so very important. But like I always say, if you really enjoy this technique and everything like that, I really recommend going to paintinglyphs.com, and you can get everything that I use here on that website, and I ship it out as soon as possible. And as far as the airbrushes that have been ordered, I'm just waiting on the parts, and as soon as those parts come in from Badger, I'll be able to ship out those custom airbrushes to you. So thank you for your patience on that. If you want to order one, that's cool too. And so they're only $150, $149, which is great. So that's something to think about. So right here, Gary says his paper tone may be too high within the tonal range of the references, so I use less dark. Interesting. So your paper tone may be too high, so too bright, and you use less dark. That's interesting. Yes, I would love to see some examples of that. But always try to get a paper that's around number 5, right? The number 5, like right in the middle between white and black. That's always a good range. And make sure that it's a neutral, not too warm, not too cold. That's always a good consideration. And Brad says that Mr. Wonderful is another handsome Canadian. Yeah, you Canadians are great. I love my Canadian peeps out there. Definitely. Oh, I want to visit Canada. So you Canadian people, you know, just, you know, do that welcome wagon for me and roll out the red carpet, because I'm coming as soon as COVID-19 goes away. And I'm also going to see my UK people. That would be a great... Hey, Todd, good to see you. How are you, Todd? It's always great to see Todd. There he is. So there's Air Todd, all the way from sunny San Diego. So for all us people stuck in the muck and mire of winter, Todd, tell us what the temperature was today. We're all going to cry. So Todd says he's alive. Thank goodness you're alive, my friend. So that's a very good thing. So with this approach to painting, and I really feel it really is steeped in tradition. From when I was looking at those, you know, steeped in tradition when I was looking at those drawings years ago at the Met, when I got to see them firsthand. And it's still there. Oh, Steve says UK will be a blast. Definitely. Have you been to the UK yet, Steve? We have a lot of friends out there, you know, just from YouTube and Facebook, and I can't wait to go out there. That will be great. So looking forward to that. So Air Todd says 65 degrees. That's not very San Diego-like weather. Was that the low or the high? Might be the low, I hope, for you guys. Now, I can see that I might have gotten overzealous, which, you guys who know me know that I do get overzealous now and then. And let's see. We're just going to dust that a little bit and just make sure that these values are closer to one another. Just calm that down. And, oh, thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. So Brad says the system that I use is awesome and learnable, so I definitely appreciate it. It's definitely a pragmatic approach. It's something, if you follow, a lot of the mystery goes away, and that's important. Oh, I see. So Todd says that the high was around 80. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, definitely. So now I can still be, extremely jealous of your climate again. I'm just going to tap that. And you see, little by little, we're not only just, you ever look at a painting and it looks good, but there's just something artificial about it and you just don't know what it is. And a lot of times is that the artist is not painting the atmosphere, right? You're not getting a feeling of atmosphere around the model. And how you do that is looking for the shapes, within those value shapes. And that's what we're doing now. So we're getting those shapes within the shapes. So very important. Wow, not 65 today, 80 next week. Oh, okay. So 80 next week. Okay, great. So next week. And look at Patty. Patty's like, I'll take it, right? Yeah, that would be like, let's go swimming right now with the weather we're getting, right? Now, Patty, where are you exactly? Okay, so right here, we can start doing some real tight detail. So right here in the eye, I bet next week we're going to have a good time when we come back with our next one. Next week we won't have the XSplit with the several cameras, but when we come back for our next project in 2 weeks, next week will be the interview, and in 2 weeks we'll probably start a new project, and we'll go back to XSplit. Now, I decided to be a little stronger with that, and we'll see if we can keep it. So Todd is still in shorts, right? If I was in shorts right now, I'd be in the hospital in a half hour. It's so cold out. But then again, as Brad says, we don't know about cold, right, sir? So we're getting into pretty much the home stretch of this painting, I would say, right? I think we're safe to say we're almost done with Mr. Wonderful. So let's hope that Mr. Wonderful sees this painting, and that would be great. If Mr. Wonderful sees this painting and he says, I want to buy 10% of your business for $50. If anyone watches Shark Tank out there, you'll get that. So it's sort of it's a really cool show where, young or prospective entrepreneurs ask sharks or venture capitalists on the show to invest in their company for a percentage of the company. So Patty says she's just outside of oh, look at that, just outside of Chicago, closer to Badger. Very cool. Oh, Brad is a -5 degrees Celsius right now in Canada. And then Mr. Gary says, can you ask Ken if he plans to increase Badger suppliers in the UK? Definitely. I think you'll be able to ask that question. Oh, so you might not be here next week because your hours are different. I'll definitely ask him that for you. That's for sure. I'll make a note of that. And Patty says there's a heat wave in the Chicago area of 35 degrees. Icy fog. That's no fun. That icy fog can't be fun at all. And so we're going to look at this painting as a whole right now. And we're going to see. So I do like the sense of light and the sense of air, right? You want to have that sense of air in the later going. And how you're going to get that, once again, is the values within the values. This is not just a straight value shape. A lot of times there's stuff going on in there, such as over here. Let's see if we can see another example of it. Okay, here's a good example. So right here, even though you have this dark and then you have this light or mid-tone, you can definitely scumble in some value within there, but it only works if you work, right? It only works if you're doing the 1 second rule and seeing it and really paying attention. So we have to make sure that we get that sense of light bouncing all over the place and, intersecting with different parts of the forms, right? So it's not just a ball and, in space with a light source. It's a ball in space with all these light sources coming all over the place, and the main light source being the most strong, but there's so many others all over the place. So Todd says, was Wendy here tonight? No, she's feeling better, but she was tired. She spoke to Patty, which is great. And thank you, Patty, for letting us know. And Gary, we're just going to continue praying for you to continually get better, as well as Wendy, right? We need you guys in 100% strength. That's important. And then Gary says, -3 degrees, fog, snow forecast in Scotland for today. Wow, that's pretty cold. And is that in Fahrenheit or Celsius, Gary? Because that sounds pretty. I don't think it's Fahrenheit because that would be -3 degrees. That would probably Celsius. And Ken has a good question. Willie has a good question. Is Ken from Badger an artist? No, he isn't an artist, but he is so knowledgeable with airbrushes and everything. But he's not an artist himself. But it's really cool that all that information that he knows, being around it his whole life. So I'm going to surprise you guys with what I'm going to do for my next project here on the live stream. I'm gonna pretty much finish off Mr. Wonderful. I think this is gonna be it for Mr. Wonderful. Pretty much. I don't think there's anything left but little touch-ups here and there. And that's not gonna take up a whole episode. So we'll definitely call this one finished. And we have 7 minutes left for Mr. Wonderful. And we still have, let's see, we still have quite a number of people here, which is great. We have 15 people watching. That's great. Thank you guys for hanging out and sticking with me and, spending Wednesday with me. I tell you, this community is just the best, right? And it really is. And I can see Mr. Leahy agrees, which is great. And Bill says they can keep that Chicago weather. He had enough years ago. Oh, you used to be out there. How cool. And how long were you out there for? And thank you again, Steve, for for supporting the channel with your very gracious donation. And that goes right back into the channel. And, maybe an upgrade in some camera work, or like having both XSplit and StreamYard, so we can do the regular live streams and also the interviews which are coming up. So I talked to Kent Lind, if you know Kent Lind. He's agreed to give an interview. He's one of the most amazing airbrush artists out there, and he's going to give an interview. And so it's great. So it'll be a split screen. You'll see me talking, and you'll see the guest talking. And I think that would be really fantastic. I'll see if I can get some other surprise guests. And I think it'd be great for you guys to ask, just like when Steve's here and Bill and a lot of, really talented painters out there, you guys could ask while you're on the live stream, but then we can actually take it up a notch and do it as an interview, like a talk show. So I think that's exciting. So Bill says he lived through the famous, look at that. That's something. Wow. That's some. I remember I lived through that. I was over in living in New Jersey, of course, like I always have. Well, most of my life living in New Jersey. And I remember it actually when it came up to like my chest, because I was just a kid. Not my chest, but like my stomach. I think I was very young at that time. But I think that might have been in 70, 77 or 78. I don't think there was anything in 79 with us. So right here, you can see, that whole thing of getting those values within the values to create that sense of air. And that's what we're doing. You see that? We're just scumbling in some light tone within that dark tone. And you see how that really is great. I mean, that's the feeling of air, right? That's that feeling of, it's not just a series of values. Like I said, you can look at a painting and you can see something's off, right? It looks realistic, everything's good, but it doesn't have that sense of atmosphere. And that's something you want to look for, as well as the grain of the skin, okay? So look for those two things. That's important. Oh, look at that. So Bill says 4 or 5 artists get on and all painted. That's an interesting concept. I mean, that might just happen. So that's pretty cool. And Gary says he's seen them online site, says currently no part available for the Patriot Arrow. Oh, is that over there in the UK? Oh, I see. Okay. And so we're just going to continue for the last 2-3 minutes. I always give you the full 2 hours when we're in this format. So no reason for us to start that, right? Oh, to let folks come in. That's actually an interesting concept, definitely. We'll see if we could do it. It wouldn't be on a Wednesday night. Something like that would be like a special thing. I want to keep the tradition of the Wednesday nights, but that's something we can do, maybe like an extra night, like a bonus live stream, right? That might be pretty cool. And one of the things I want you to get accustomed to, a big Zoom, that would be fantastic, right? That this is what Bill said, do a big Zoom thing. Yeah, I definitely can do that with StreamYard. So that would be a lot of fun. So we definitely can do that. So I'm looking forward to that myself, right? Definitely. And great idea, Bill. Definitely. Oh, no, thank you so much for coming by. It's as long as I get to see you, Todd, that's cool. So don't worry about being late. As long as you get here and I get to say hello to you and see how you're doing, that's more important. And Mr. Brad says, great live stream. Mr. Wonderful's looking great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Really appreciate that. And I hope you have a great night, Brad. And yes, and for like the Zoom thing could be like a one-time thing. Definitely, we'll see how it goes, right? If it's really popular, we'll come back and do it again like that. That would be great. Um, Definitely a cool idea. So great idea there, Mr. Bill. Bill comes out with some real good ideas. And if you haven't seen Bill's YouTube channel, W Leon Artistry, it's really good. So I'll type it in really quick. W Leon Artistry on YouTube. Give him a shout out, and thank you. And we love you, Gary, that's for sure. And we just want you to be happy and healthy. And it's great to talk to you. And thank you for blessing us with your presence today. And get better, my friend, okay? And this is W Leon Artistry. That is Bill's channel on YouTube. Look him up. He's fantastic. You won't be sorry. A lot of different stuff he does. He covers a lot of things. And Willie says, let's see, what does Willie say? Willie says, good night, everyone. And thank you, Willie. Great to talk to you. Thanks talking to all of you and hanging out. Sorry about the camera angle. I'm just, progress, right? I'm trying different programs. One program is really good for interviews, and the other old program is best for doing demonstrations. So thank you guys. At least I got to look at your comments and talk to you. And thank you, Steve, once again. Steve, thank you again, my friend. Always fantastic. And I hope you guys have the best night. I'm going to hit that button that says end broadcast. And here we go. Take care, guys.